Hey, here's my account planning masterclass. I have an agency for agencies. I think that revolution is often a 10-degree shift, not a 180-degree shift. And that those little shifts, like going to a chiropractor, can transform ordinary into the extraordinary. My name is Lynette Zanders. I am CEO and Chief Strategist at Wild Alchemy. So this is a little bit about what we do. Sometimes brand related, sometimes insight related, sometimes culture related, sometimes leadership and training related. Also do a little copywriting because I like it. And I think being a good planner requires you to be able to express yourself in writing. Artifacts are brand books, videos, mission, vision, values, cultural tenets, kind of the physical external pieces that bring brands and cultures to life. So these are kind of workshops that I give, at least topics. So business boot camp is starting your company, kind of, or if you have a company, getting all the elements of the flywheel right. Brand you is your own personal brand. Creative research is how to find great insight. I find planners, if they do their own research, or I should say should do their own research, because finding an insight is as important as conveying that. Momentum is about your creative buoyancy or your happiness. And I do have a book on that. Cultural recalibration. Just went through this with the bank. It's kind of turning the dials internally to kind of increase employee happiness and engagement, which drives creativity and productivity, but different conversation. Stellar leadership, how to move that ball forward. Killer briefs, how to write a very tight killer brief. That is a big part of what you'll see in here today. And so I'm skipping stones across a lot of this to give you perspective on account planning. I worked on a bunch of stuff, not my first rodeo, but these companies and these brands are way more similar than they are different. So I'll just tell you, kind of regardless of what you're working on, you're not going to go far wrong. I've also worked with a bunch of agencies. These are all freelance. Worked for DDB and BBDO and all the dead guys, Cole & Weber, the Richards Group. So I've trained a lot of planners and they've gone on to do great things, I will say. So I'm confident in what I'm telling you today. These are just some results that I have from case studies, brands that I've worked on. And I really hope this isn't in my view, can't stand it. So one thing I will say is make sure you measure what's going on. So or talk to the clients afterwards. So, an increase in inquiries, increase in season pass sales. So all of these results, I will tell you again, this was all within the first year of launching a campaign. Yes, God love my clients and my creative teams more than anything, but I didn't mess it up. And I will say that some of the insights that we found in all of these absolutely played a huge role in what we put out there and ultimately in what happened. So this is a typical workshop I would give over a whole day, and we're not doing that here. So I will give you a little bit about all of these things, the philosophy of it, your role, how to create wiggle, how to drive. We will probably have a second video if this just gets too long. So if you need intermission, take intermission, pause it, come back to it. But again, this is just all the things that I think you need to thrive. So a few things I've learned. I had a friend who retired from Yahoo at a very, very irritatingly young age. And he just said, it's really easy to make millions of dollars. You find out what people want and you give it to them, which is a lot of what planning is. It's finding out what those the gatekeepers or the end users need, not just to hear, but what they need to feel and what they need to do. And being persuasive in ways that affect their behavior, which sounds easy, and it also sounds hard, and it's a little bit of both. But I'll just tell you, once you catch the bug, you can't do anything else. People will tell you everything if you listen for not what they said, but if you listen for what they meant. Your job as a planner is to simplify the complicated and make people fall in love. You have to make the end customer fall in love with the brand or the product. You have to make your creative team fall in love with the project. And you got to make your client fall in love with the campaign. I find that guessing is really expensive. So if you get pushback on doing research, just to go do it anyway. Do-overs are expensive. Misses are expensive. I had a boss, and it'll probably pop up in here again, but he just couldn't get what I did. Well, he was a side boss. And eventually the penny dropped. And he said, oh, I get it. We never seem to have enough time to do it right, but we always seem to find time to do it over. I was like, yes. So that was another situation. They didn't want to approve the research, so I just went and did it anyway. And I wrote the brief from it anyway. And all of a sudden, we had results. And all of a sudden, it took a lot less time and energy and money to get an amazing campaign made. And if you only do what you've always done, you'll only get what you've already got. So ideally, some people are in my workshops that didn't choose, but if you chose this, I assume you're in. But, I remind myself, I can continue doing what I'm doing currently if that's working for me. Experiment with this for a little bit and see what happens. So the philosophy of planning. Planners, the whole started in the UK, absolutely. Used to go to people's homes, find out what made them tick, absolutely. But I think we are also strategists in here's what I would do if it was my money. Poets, we have to find the beauty in things. Cheerleaders, we have to get people excited about what Joe Schmo thinks and why this new product refresh is going to be amazing. We're spies, we're warriors, often for the truth and for the small things that are important. We're conductors, kind of get everybody on that same page. We nurture ideas and people. We're scouts, we can tell them where to find gold. Problem solvers, brand gurus, ad fans, culturalists, cool hunters, artists, entrepreneurs. So we live in a world of context. We live in a world of what's appropriate. And we are also stewards of brand or pattern recognition. What's happening as a through line between things, and how might that serve us? So your mission is to inspire, maybe even more than inform, simplify, overcomplicate, really understand the why people care, or why they will care, or why the company that made this feels like it's very important, or why are we making this thing? What do we want to have happen? Your mission is to sell juicy possibilities. Our enemy is dry, or white bread, as I like to call it. You got to move the ball forward, smooth out the speed bumps. If you don't have a great output, you haven't done your job. So it's not just about finding the insight, it's engaging everyone after that point to do something amazing with it. So appropriateness, there's the old adage of if you were driving by a sign that was handwritten, you would want it to say fresh eggs and not flying lessons. Being relevant is getting people to nod their heads and go, I'm seen, I'm heard, I know what that is, and I feel that feel. So what you tell people isn't necessarily what's going to get them to think a certain thing or feel a certain thing or do a certain thing. You've got to kind of find which buttons that's going to push that are relevant to people. And it's ultimately got to be true. Authentic is kind of the word of the day, but more than ever before, you can't make stuff up. So telling someone something that they already know is true is one of the best ways to get them to listen to everything else you have to say. So again, appropriateness, you wouldn't want fresh egg sign to be in corporate font, right? It feels wrong. So that's appropriate. The why is the right person at the right time with the right message. And it has to be meaningful, it has to be motivating, and it has to be relevant. And ultimately, you want creative to be the creative development to be efficient and be effective. You are in service to the creative department, full stop. So it's about doing it right the first time. It's being more right out of the gate, but ultimately it's about moving people. So your role is, your perspective and your brand is in the intersection of creativity, strategy, and sales, believe it or not. Every job in every company is strategic. Every job in every company is creative, and every job in every company is sales. And if you don't have all three legs of the stool, things are going to go wrong. So when I get my creative groups to describe strategic people, they say not so nice things, dry, anal, whatever. I get strategic people and business people to describe creative people. They say not so nice things, unreliable, too emotional, babies. And then I get those two groups to describe salespeople, and it's really ugly. Smarmy, making people do things they don't want. And I had that view of sales when I started, and I quickly was taught otherwise, which I think changed my life. And I'll explain that in a minute. But what I need you to do is have a positive view of each of these legs of the stool, each of these characteristics. Your creative self could be very brave. Your strategic self could be very driven. Your sales self has got to be a bit charismatic. Your words may be different, and they should be, but have one positive word for each of these. And then ideally find your poster child, famous person, living or dead. Mine was, and I had a minute, Anthony Bourdain. Clearly a genius creatively, absolutely had a plan and a point of view on getting people to go order a beer at 4:00 and order the cream sauce. And sales. I mean, he was fierce in some ways, but you believed him. And ultimately, I think you thought he had your best interest at heart. So whether you agree with him or not, he, for me, embodies three legs of the stool. And I think that's what you need in your mind's eye to succeed. So again, when I started, I worked at the Richards Group when they had 10 people. No, they had 10 women. They had 60 people. And Stan said, I don't know how to do this job. But actually, I got the job because I told him I didn't want to work in advertising. But that's a different story. He said, once I got there, he said, just be of value to the creatives and you will always have a job. And I said, that's awesome. How do I do that? And he said, I don't know. He said, go ask him. And I'm like, there are 20 of them. And he's like, well, then you'd best get started. Ask each one of them how you can be of value to them. And that was a PhD in how to be a good planner. Each one wanted something a little different. They said, I want you to talk to me instead of sitting down writing reports. I want you to bring people to life for me so I know where on the canvas I should start. And I will say my career was made by benefiting my creative team. So one of my very first jobs or weekends at the Richards Group, the creative team, who's still there, by the way, pitched this campaign for Cadillac. And I'll jump to the end. It ended up winning a Cannes Lion, and it was called the Pig Spot. But the client rejected the pig spot and said that pigs were offensive and he didn't want it associated with his brand. So I kind of ran into one of the creative guys steaming down the hall and I said, is there anything I can do? He said, yeah, save the pig spot. So I didn't ask anybody. I took pictures of farm animals And I went to Cadillac dealerships on the weekends, and I asked people to use adjectives to describe each of the farm animals. And I came in on Monday, and I maybe only talked to 10 people, but I told the client all the words people use to describe all the animals, including the pigs, and not one of them used the word offensive. And I said, fine, okay, do it. And the ad was made, and they won a lion, and they were my best friends. So I just can't accentuate this point enough. I mean, you get the account people in your ear, they think you work for them. You got the client in your ear, you got your boss. Your creative team is the one that's going to bring this to life. And so everything you do has got to inspire them. You have to find the time, though, to do all of these different parts of planning. So it's learning about the context. It's learning about your audience. It's a billion presentations to sell it through. It's spending time with your creative department. I have spent weekends looking through communication arts magazines, looking for a certain illustrator to help my art director. That, again, was worth it. But you have to find time. So it's stealing time and energy from things that don't matter, so you can spend the time and energy on things that do matter. And that's another Stanism. And he was the smartest man I've ever worked for. Not the easiest, but by far the smartest. So spending time, stealing time from things that don't matter, digging around your office looking for stuff, status meetings, tweaking the report for the 50th time, doing your own proofreading. There are a whole bunch of things that if you actually looked at the course of your day that you could pull out and say, I could outsource that, or I could just let it go. And then refocusing on the things that do matter. You know, my presentations to clients, selling my ideas is probably as important as finding those insights. And then everything else is blah, blah. So audit your days. And it's really managing your energy as much as your time. So if you don't have a creative department and you are responsible for making ideas, email me. It's a different animal, but very similar thoughts on it. Ultimately, though, you're going to have to sell somebody on what you find and what you want to do. So time spent talking that through is critical. You can't just send a report. Nobody's going to read the report. I hate to tell you, I don't care how well it's written. If I can design one page with the key bits, I win. And this was another Stanism. After we went to focus groups the night before, he would somehow miraculously be in the elevator with me and just me for 11 floors till we got to the office. And as soon as the doors would close, I'd be, fuck. And he's like, okay, so what did we learn and what are we going to do about it? And I had 11 floors to tell him, not just tell him, but he asked questions. And push, pull, sell, and be ready immediately. It wasn't like I'm going to spend a lot of weeks sitting around thinking about this. So voice to voice on who you really need to sell in is critical. Different times of day are good for different kinds of work. So, and know yourself and design accordingly. This is mine. I find that I do, if this is 9 a.m. on the left, I do my best writing in the morning. My editor hasn't woken up. I'm fresh. I'm still optimistic. Lunchtime or any time over food and beverage is better for me just to talk things out and hold meetings. But if you have food and beverage, it's a conversation and not a meeting. Then especially if I've gotten up in the morning to write, my afternoon, I'm good for nothing. But I can start tomorrow today. I can prep for my next day. Sometimes that's just formatting a document before I put the information in, or cleaning off my desktop, which will just change my whole mood in the morning and how productive I am. It's finding out where I need to go. It's confirming that meeting. It's all those administrative things. Save that for your least productive time of the day. And And then I find afternoons, evenings is thinking time. I get out a blank pad of paper and a pen, and I have my little glass of something. And that's when I think through things. And I've had some people say, well, that's more than the hours I'm supposed to work. I think you take breaks. But if I do my best writing in the morning, I do my best thinking at night, and that helps me be great at my job, I will get paid for that time, ultimately. I took a pay cut every job I took, and I doubled my income the next year I was there. So it's never on a silver platter, but I know what I need to do a good job, and I know what a good job looks like, and I can sell that, and I'll get paid for it. But I know I have to invest in doing my best work. Little bit on brands. Brands are what they do for me. It's about what they say about me, badge brands. And it's about who they are and their culture. Does it give me a sense of belonging? Is this my tribe? Benefits are, it makes me feel powerful. It makes me feel beautiful. Badge brands are, what does it say about me? Starbucks cups, you can see them from a mile away. We won't, that's a badge. Harley Davidson is a badge because there are more stickers on cars than there are Harley Davidsons on the road. So it's things that people are externally driven, that you want to signal something to other people. So they can be one of these things, or they could be all of these things. But you got to ideally investigate all of them to know which one's the strongest. There are 3 strategies to grow a company and a brand, and I use those almost inextricably. I mean, rarely can you have a really strong company with a bad brand, and rarely do you have a great brand that's underperforming, unless there's mismanagement. So I just lump them together. I always start with the core. So if you can find the people who are currently making up the lion's share of your revenues and get more from them, it's easier to do, and the payoff's bigger. So I always start with trying to get more from people who currently love you, grow your cultists. The second way is, and it usually happens next, is the next wave, are light competitors. So people who dabble in your brand maybe and can grow them, or people who buy from a competitor and we want to steal them. So that's stealing share, growing usage from light and competitive customers. And the next is to grow the category. So that's getting new people into the category, or people who kind of wannabes. They're not quite your customers. The danger is most clients want to jump to the end to go, let's go mass. But until you have a strong core, it doesn't necessarily help you. So the rule is that only a market leader can grow the category. If the third in line spends money to grow the category, the market leader is going to get that benefit. Growing your competitive base or your light users, if you don't have a core, they're not loyal, they're transient. They're way more expensive to get, and you don't necessarily keep them. So growing your core is the way to keep the machine fed. Keep the lights on, and then the extra of that you go spend to conquer new territory. So those 20% who make up 80% of revenues and 80% of the love for your brand and product are called lions. So this is a Nikeism: lions, horses, and dogs. Lions are loyal. They're heavy buyers, either number of products or size of the prize and how much they spend, but know why they love you and radiate out that out like a lighthouse to find other like-minded people. Rule of thumb is you feed your lions, you ride your horses. You have to have strategies to see if they ladder into a lion or down into a dog. They don't stay there for long. And then you feed your dog, or you quiet your dogs. Horses, if you're at that point, find out how you grow the business and find out what buttons to push across those horses. Dogs they're usually 25% of products, 25% of customers, 25% clients. who suck up your time and energy. You don't love the work. You don't love working on it or for them. And nobody really cares. It doesn't have any marquee value. So the trick, though, is to not pay attention to the dogs. The dogs are squeaky wheels. The dogs are the customer who goes, please change the product this way. If you looked at the numbers, your lions often tend to be the most quiet. They just quietly kind of keep doing their thing until they walk. And that you'll feel, or that your client will feel. So this is defies conventional so-called wisdom to start with your lions, but absolutely know that you know them, and then add your horse's strategies to that. If you start chasing prospects, you'll always be chasing, and your client will run out of money. Just tell him. So finding the common emotional thread between internal stakeholders and external stakeholders is key. So I find if I go find out what lions think, why they love the brand, what makes them proud, why do they spend so much, and I find out internally, if we do a workshop, what they love about the company, what they find makes them proud, and people who contribute the most, which is a whole other way of getting your clients to see lions, horses, and dogs in their staff. But you get your people who lean in to do a workshop, and you want to match that with the people that you talk to externally who love the brand. And if they don't line up like a mirror, you're going to get some wobble down the road. So I always try to do internal workshops as well as external discovery. And what I do is do the external discovery and bring that into the internal stakeholders, so it becomes a debrief, and it's a way to align on what we know about cultists. Or if it's more of a startup, I might start with the stakeholders and then go validate that with cultists. But both is important. So there's a halo effect that happens with some brands. And it's best analogy I have for it is if you want to sell hamburger, you need to become known for steak. What's the secret handshake that makes you go, ooh, that's good? Because you can't explain anymore. I don't know if you ever could, but really not anymore. So it's finding the thing that is magnetic about your brand, about your category. And so people will go, well, everybody could say that if it's true about the category. Yeah, but if you say it first, you say it loudest, or you say it best, you get to own it. And it's never really about the thing. It's what the thing represents, or it's what the thing does for them. So instead of focusing just tightly on it, romance it, figure out what it is that people are attached or attracted to. I always say when I'm trying to position a brand or find a place to land, it's got to be 2 rungs above where that company or brand currently is. I always ask consumers to describe the ideal, define success for me in this, category. For a telephone company or a mobile company, it was like, if you're invisible, if I never have to think about you or talk to you, you are doing a great job. And really understanding the enemy can be another way in. It's, what's the opposite? So when I worked on, let's just use an airline, for example, I was selling international business class. And it wasn't really what they got in business class that made a difference. They're like, yeah, it's nice, and I kind of feel like a king, and whatever. The real benefit was not dealing with the chaos and the madness of coach. So if you Miller High Life, talking to these guys, it was nostalgia and their dad and being the backbone of America. And I said, who or what is the enemy of High Life? And they said, oh, those microbrew drinking boys. My son never gets his truck dirty, cries at commercials. That was a foundational question. So just those are a couple guardrails to help you in your research. Another way, and I do this with consumers, I'll do this with my internal team, I'll do it with clients, is finding the point of staying. And the point of staying was coined by Tide, who said, you know, people, when they go shopping, aren't thinking about their detergent. It's what's on sale, lowest price per unit, whatever. They said when people think about their detergent, that moment when their product or service became more important than any other was when someone spilled something on themselves or were about to spill something on themselves. There's a book, Kirshen Bellman Bond put out a book that has a lot of these examples, and they're brilliant. But try to think about that moment in someone's day, week, month, year, lifetime, when that product or service is going to become more important than any other, and start investigating there. What's the lever point? What's their ingoing mindset? What are they doing? Is there a trigger? What's their external, their outgoing mindset that actually gets them to do something? So if you talk to people who have already done the thing you want them to do and get them to track you through the breadcrumbs, you're more likely to be right, because you won't have all the people who dropped out. And I kind of capture all of them. What are their motivators and barriers? Positive and negative. Just capture, because there are a lot of different options in this point. So it's capturing them and then figuring out, once you go through the rest of the questions on the brief, kind of which mindset is the best one to start with. What's the best landscape to tell your story? And again, there's more than one right answer. So I just tell you to sit with this one for a minute instead of trying to go down a rabbit hole of a mindset. As I said, planners really need to be good with words. And I find it takes practice to be good with words. Excuse me, Rose. I'm going to pick on my daughter because I can. But growing up with me had to be just nightmarish. And when she was little, I really wanted to expand her vocabulary, but I really just wanted to understand how she thought and what she was seeing and what was going on. Like I only had one. So when she was little bitty, she was still in diapers. We were in Sun Valley visiting some friends, and she walked into the Peggy Fleming old wood lodge, storied lodge. And she was like, "Mom, this is a really nice place." I said, "How the hell do you know it's a really nice place? You're like 2.5. And she was like, I don't know. You know. And I said, "Yeah, I know. But I want to know how you know." She was like, "It just is." I'm like, "Yeah, it's a bullshit answer. Thanks. If you give me a good answer, though, we'll have ice cream." And she sat and she thought and she thought. And she was like, "I think it's a really nice place because it's beautiful everywhere you look." Oh, so great. So yes, we had ice cream all day, but forged that path of actually coming up with the word when you just want to fold and go, "Yeah, you know." And especially if you worked on a brand with a team for a long time, everybody goes, "Yeah, you know." "Yeah, I know." "Yeah, you know, no." I worked with this woman from Nike who was on a brief writing workshop, and she wrote in an acronym for the audience. And I said, "What does that stand for?" She's like, "I don't know, but everybody uses it." And I was like, "Are you sure they know?" She goes, "Yeah, we all go, you know." And so I said, "Ask the lady next to you." So they started asking each other. Nobody knew what it meant. So, can get you in a lot of trouble. I also used to go to Mexico a couple times a year for a couple of weeks. And I just loved asking her for interpretations. So you see the word peligroso. "Hey, Lex, what does peligroso mean?" And which is dangerous. She was like, "Sketchy." It's like, enough, good enough. And another time we were in Mexico, she was a teenager, and I was like, "I really need you to know how alcohol affects you before you go hang out with boys." And so I got her a tequila and lemonade. And I was like, "Yeah, but you have to tell me how it makes you feel." And she goes, "Oh, I feel great." And I was like, "Not helpful." Like, "Have another one. How do you feel?" She goes, "I feel squishy." I was like, Excellent. We're going to put names to things, words to things. It's like having a 24 box of Crayola crayons instead of an 8 box. It's not blue and red and gray. It's cobalt and vermilion and timberwolf. And that starts to exercise a muscle in your brain. So it takes a little effort, but once you see it, you can't unsee it and you can't not see it. So you have to like keep feeding that animal. You're welcome. Writing positioning lines, you know, it's wanting to get to exactly the right thing in as few words as possible. My rule was always 7 words. So the line that you wrote in the brief of the one thing we needed to tell them was 7 words and only 7 words. And you had to be able to put a logo of your product above it and it could run as a billboard. God, if you're seeing this, and we still have billboards. But I tried to get to as few words as possible. So local flavor was about people who traveled to Portland said, if I go to Starbucks, I'm going to see other tourists. I want to go where the locals are. The original wheat beer, which just listening to people in a group go, oh yeah, Widmer Hefeweizen. That was my first wheat beer. And by the time I heard about 10 people say that, yeah, it was cornflakes. Try it again for the first time. And so they ended up, well, I did in the brief, it was the original wheat beer that they hung on to. Miller High Life, again, those microbrew drinking sons of theirs, what they were really trying to say was they were last of a generation, and that Miller High Life was a signal or a symbol to other people that they were a real man. And that insight came from watching people. I was interviewing them in bars at 8 o'clock in the morning because these guys work graveyard shifts. And this was the original rebrand. Thank you very much. And new can. And I said, you know, as a thank you for talking to me about all this stuff, you know, I'd like to buy your friends a round of beer. And they'd order Corona or Heineken or something else. And I was like, what just happened? And they said, oh, I'm embarrassed. I love it. It's nostalgic for me, but I'm not letting, you know, other people in on this little party. So that really informed the role of the advertising, which was to validate them. And Outward Bound, you know, the perception was they drop kids off in the woods with a bag of rice and a match and hope they find their way home. Some true. But we talked to people who had been through it, and they said the benefit of it was that they weren't afraid of anything anymore. They could tackle anything, and it lasted in their whole lifetimes. So that courage for life. And I talked to these parents who were not going to make their kids go, but they still kept getting the catalogs. And I was like, why have you gotten the catalog for 10 years? And you know your kid's not going to go and you're not going to make them. And they said, well, I kind of secretly want to go. I want kind of a meaningful escape and adventure and to learn something new and sharpen my skills. And so it took a couple of months, but we changed the entire flavor of the organization that was focused on teens to come out with adult-only courses that got them into the black immediately. And then when the parents got done with those courses, they were like, I'm totally making my kid go. So anyway, long details, but I say as a planner, try to write the tagline, and that becomes your brief. And if you fail and they write a better tagline, hallelujah. Stan used to make the creative team, when they were pitching an idea, use our one thing we needed to tell them as a tagline in their, you know, unfinished work, to see if the tagline was shit or to see if the idea was off brief. Kind of genius. So elevating your tools and your state of mind elevates your thinking and your writing. So finding that beautiful pen, finding that pad of paper. I love these big art pads that are blank. I just love them. And it makes me want to write stuff. And elevating your state could be, you know, having a clean desktop. I find it's having a playlist of EDM. So no vocals, no lyrics, but very high energy music that gets my elevation up. And it's a Tony Robbins, but God, from 20 years ago, and he's still talking about it, but he's doing something right. I don't like how he pitches everything now, but he's doing something right. And focus on your outputs. So what is the thing that you are going to make that's going to represent you when you're not there? I used to have to, I put thumb rings on and painted my toenails blue and tried to do anything I could back when I was working in a cube to make myself feel more creative so I would write more creatively. I think this got messed up. I don't even know what that means. So feel your way through is instead of thinking your way through. So when you are walking in your office, if it's walking into the DMV, do something to change your space. It's feng shui. If you are, God, we used to walk into meetings at the Death Star, this agency I worked for, and we just hated it. And we realized we could change our altitude. Like, what if we just told each other jokes until we all laughed? And we did that every meeting that we had together, and it helped everything. But I think when you're seeing or hearing work for the first time, when you're getting a creative review, yes, you can think about, is this right? Whatever. I pay attention to how I feel. If I get one glimmer of a goosebump, I'm going to fight for that. There's something in there that it's going to take me a minute to think about it, but my body knows when I've got something that will move people because it moved me. If I'm writing a brief and I don't get a goosebump, nobody else will either. So feeling your way through as opposed to thinking your way through is one good door to walk through. Always. This is an old ad, but it's the difference between the feeling and the thinking. So there was a time when women were buying their own jewelry for the right hands. And it's the right hand ring just because, meaning that it wasn't for any particular reason, but that was just, it was just your strategy is showing. So I don't feel anything but boredom. The same, not the same campaign, but the same product, I guess, somebody else came out with. And this is an insight brought to life that speaks to what the right hand does for them and says about them in a way that makes them feel something as opposed to think something. So it creates that sense of purpose and belonging. So your left hand draws that line, your right hand crosses it. Your left hand keeps you steady. Your right hand keeps you guessing. Your left hand has a plan. Your right hand has a mission. Women of the world, raise your right hand. I got a goosebump still again. And that was just, this is my married life. This is me. So this is an example of a campaign that was a little thinky, not wrong, but emotion is what drives people. Angel Devil Judge is a way of giving feedback. It's not a compliment sandwich where you say something nice, smack somebody in the head, and say something nice again. It's a framework that helps you think through the best way to give feedback and helps them receive it. So angel is always start with something genuinely good. What's the praise in there? I like how you did this. I like how you did that. And I've had some people go, oh, I just don't have time for this, like wringing out my soul. And I'm like, what do you want that person to do more of? Because if you don't reward them for it with an attaboy, that's going to go out with the bathwater. So acknowledge the things that you want to see more of. Devil, this is the biggest one, is play devil's advocate. Put your concerns in the form of a question. Do you think that's strong enough? Do you think the logo's big enough? Do you think people are going to think this is a competitor? Whatever. Let people understand your objection. And then judges, hey, how about we try this? How about we try that? How about we try the other? So it allows for input at a key point, but still lets you convey something, but after they've thought through what the answer might be on their own. If you're seeing work, your job is to either add value to it or applaud. You plus it or shut it. That was kind of a rule in our agency. It doesn't mean you can pontificate or what if we did this or what if we did that because you think it's fun, They present it to you and your job is to make it better or sell the hell out of it. A little bit on the process. And again, this is stealing time and energy from things that don't matter. There's a process to planning, and this is from Abby Hirschhorn at DDB. This is how she would review people. As a planner, you have to be good at investigation, finding insight, realizing what that insight is, helping teams ideate, or you even ideating, because if you can't come up with an idea, it shouldn't be in the brief, and you have to go that far. Inspiring people, is it inspirational? Did you inspire your teams? Did you help with implementation of that? And what was the ultimate impact? How right were you? So investigation of the consumer and client. You can do primary research, secondary research, quantitative and qualitative. And I don't go into great detail on it here, but I have something more on it if you want it. So primary is stuff that you pay for and do yourself. Secondary stuff that you find online. Quantitative is quant. So numbers of things, how many people did this? So surveys. Qualitative is talking to people to understand why they do what they do, or think what they think, or feel how they feel. Your job in research is to find possibilities, not proof. So this isn't about proving something out so much as I think the work, the research gets done on the very front end. You're feeling for emotions. You're not listening for something specific. Let it wash over you and kind of follow the breadcrumbs. Figure out what they meant as opposed to what they said. You're like an actor. You have to be able to put yourself in their shoes and make decisions like they would make without being able to talk to them. So you have to get where they're coming from. Insight is those nuggets of understanding that illuminates an area of heat. And I get so many people asking me, how do you know when you found an insight? And I'm like, if I say it and people go, ooh, that's interesting. Or I go, I can't stop thinking about that. Or, I get a little goosebump. And when somebody says something, and I'm like, oh, there's something in that. Or if they get really excited or really angry, follow their emotion. I won't give you all of these, but here, American Girl doll. There's really expensive dolls that look like the kids. We did some research and really found out that they, used to say these certain dolls are for kids under 6. These dolls are for, 6 to 10. And then we had the books at a certain age. And we found out that it was a stage, not an age. It depended if it was an only child or one that had lots of older siblings and cousins that made them grow up much faster. And that it was kind of paralleled with color. They went through a pink stage, and then they went through a blue stage, and then they went through a purple stage, and then they go through a black stage. And you can have, I had a 7-year-old who was wearing black, and I had a 12-year-old who was still wearing baby blue. But their favorite color really kind of follows that stage of development, not an age anymore. A&W, I was asking people, what made a burger worth a left-hand turn? Who had the best burger? And this was up in Canada. And, somebody said, you can't say who has the best burger. It depends what you're in the mood for. Sometimes it needs Spider-Man. Sometimes it needs Batman. And you can't say one's better than the other. It just depends what the situation is, which it's just stuck with me. And I was like, okay, I get that. Nike got us, I was asking 20-year-olds, we followed the money. So we talked to people who were buying the lion's share of gear, not necessarily Nike's gear, but women who were buying gear. And we got, 20 to 24-year-olds. And the question was, define success for me. And they were like, I know I look good now. I'm in my 20s, but I want to look good when I'm Susan Sarandon's age. And I want to have not done work, and I want a business, and I want a cool, non-traditional family. But more than that, you look at her and she just radiates confidence. And that's what I want. I want strength added to my definition of beauty. And so that's just one of those things that really kind of helped my creative team, who were all men, capture the why behind it all, what they were going for. Last one, Mount Bachelor's a ski hill, and I was talking to people who own season passes for multiple years, and I said, "What's a perfect day on the mountain?" And they were like, "No tears. I'm not crying. Kids not crying. Nobody's crying." But again, just to understand the world from their point of view helps make a lot of changes, like not having to self-police in the line, for example. So feeling for things. Someone said almost all of this at some point in a group that I went, "Ooh, that's interesting." So sit with it a minute until the next morning you have to ride the elevator. So like great design, an insight should feel obvious. Not that everybody's doing it, but you're like, why isn't everybody doing it? Such a duh. Ideation is uncovering places to play that are going to get people to think what we want them to think. So I call them hypotheses, adcepts, advertising concepts. Think about 5 to 8 reasons why anyone would ride the train or visit the Yukon. Think about what it does for them. Think about what it says about them. Create a headline and find pictures that kind of create an emotional reaction, not just a rational one. So people can react to that instead of finished work, and you'll know if you're on the right path or not. And I take those into conversations with me. So an example, is this was on a board, and I didn't do this, Bruce Tate did this, but standing in the Yukon might give you the same feeling as walking on the moon. And the line on the board was, "I suddenly realized I might be standing where no human has ever stood." And half the people leaned back and went, "No." And half the people leaned forward and went, "Yes." And that's really the sign of a great position, is you're going to lose as many people as you draw, but the ones you draw firmly. But walk in with a bunch of these and you can tell how people react to them, which is more real than what they actually say. Inspiration. So making creatives fall in love with making people fall in love. It's, a piece of paper ultimately, but it could be a video clip from a movie. It could be a meme. It could be, I always say the briefing is theater. The briefing brings it all to life, but ultimately you have to get it down to this one page. And I've got a book on brief writing. You can download this worksheet. But these are the key questions that you need to answer, and you have to do it in this tight a space. And ultimately, all of it has to hang together. So I find I have to write it about 3 different times before I get, why we're doing this, to who we're talking to what we need to tell them, and to make it all hang as one cogent story. Implementation is creating expressions that hit the right person at the right time with the right message to move people. It could be a media buy. It could be, I was telling you about the point of stain. Kirschenbaum put stickers on mangoes in the grocery store because they discovered that it was, if they were going to sell a Snapple that was mango flavored, a new flavor, yes, they were selling Snapple. So yeah, they're competing with Coke and Pepsi. Yeah, they're competing with bottled water. Yeah, they're competing with Gatorade. But ultimately they were like, no, we're really just selling mango. So we need to talk to the people who like the taste of mango. So the stickers on the mangoes in the store were now available in Snapple. You can come up with those ideas, Impact is just setting ourselves up to follow the breadcrumbs so we know what to do next. What happened? Why did we think it worked? What didn't work as well as we wanted? How are we going to reset for the next year? So a lot of different ways to do research. You can do surveys. You could do, I do surveys and I get people to opt in. So send it to my client's database, for example. Their customers go through, we get an idea of the profile of them. We say, hey, do you want to talk further with us? And we get a group of people who opt in to say yes. And then we are allowed to contact them. We might interview them one-on-one in 3s, in 6s, probably no more than 6 at a time. Talk to them, show them our stuff. We think about what we learned. We write a brief. We talk to people about the brief. We maybe rewrite the brief. Then we get it approved. Then we kick off the teams. Then we check in with the teams to make sure they don't have questions or see if they're stuck. Because usually in the briefing, they haven't digested it. to the point where I think they can ask cogent questions. So I will send the brief ahead of time, which some people are like, oh, gasp. But the more you get them to digest, the better the time is going to be that you have together. So I always find too that if we review the brief before we see executions, it reminds us what we intended to do. And we do that internally as well as with the client. That is my whole process. Creative research. So much you can do. Very little's off limits. I just find that there are too many people in a group to get to the why. There are not the right people spent. Money hasn't been spent to find really good people to interview. And then the moderator tends to talk too much. So, and then there's no stem. So all of those things I think can make for better research. I would do the research before the work is started, let alone developed. I would do research if you have unanswered questions in the brief. If you can't align and everybody's guessing, go talk to people. And if you want to create something amazing, I have yet to have a piece of work that I've done that wasn't made better by having insight. I can't guess. If I could guess, I'd be the richest planner in the world. People have always amazed me with what they've put forward. So answering the what or how you would go about doing it, again, quantitative is the how many. How many people are aware of this brand? How many people buy this brand? Do they buy this brand and that brand or just our brand? How happy are they with us? Some of those kinds of questions. Qualitative is the how, why, and what ifs. So how did you feel when you saw that for the first time? How did you feel when you took it home? How does it make you feel now? It's really about emotions that drive beliefs and behaviors, and really following what's of interest to them. Say, hey, if you told people at a dinner party about this product, what would you say? And for creative development, I think qualitative rules. It fills that space between, it fills the space between decisions and perceptions instead of breaking up the human experience. There's a role for quant, but I think that's more about the proof, and I think qualitative is more about the possibility. A little bit on the how. I use external research partners. They recruit people. They do it for a living. They do an amazing job. I hire people to conduct and tabulate surveys if they're beyond SurveyMonkey capability. You can contact friends of friends. You can buy sample from SurveyMonkey, or you just put feet on the street to intercept and observe. A lot of my planning life was spent doing the thing I wanted my customers to do, and talking to the people who were right then and there at that edge to see what was bringing them forward and what was keeping them away. Secondary information can be helpful, but man, you'll need a lot of creative license. I did one brief for Holland America from an MRI poll, media poll, and I was just telling the stories. Like, these people traveled internationally. They bought whole coffee beans. This was a long time ago. There were some things that you could tell about how they wanted to live that really made a difference. So I think secondary is useful, but far less useful than talking to people. And if you follow that line of thinking, your client will say, that's not a lot of people. And qualitative is not about the numbers. I think that's when quant can really help reinforce it. If it feels right in your gut, that gives you some confidence. And truly, the alternative is making it up. Well, if we didn't talk to anybody, we would just present this and go, we think this is right, and that would be okay. I love this quote: a single moment of human emotion is enough to create a masterpiece. It's not about making us feel like everybody's going to believe this. It's finding that chink in the armor, that moment that you can go, this is interesting, and let's see what we can do with this creatively. It is more art than science. Who is best to talk to? Cultists are your lions, are primary. People who make up the lion's share of the revenues, who make up your ambassadorship. Prospects are secondary. And ideally, if you talk to both, find the threads between them. So it's good to do. I would just make sure that you do cultists. Clients will always be like, oh, we already have them. Let them go. We don't have to talk to them. Initiating conversations. So if you are moderating, and I highly encourage you to moderate your own groups, have 5 key questions. use techniques when you're in there, make it fun, stop talking. So ask your question. It's like when you're training a dog, they say, don't repeat the command. Ask your question and stop talking, and then listen hard. Don't let certain people take over. Don't quit the conversation until you understand. Don't condescend. Don't be creepy. That was some of my advice. I rode the train to talk to people, figure out why people rode the train. And he was like, how do you just walk up to people? And I'm like, you just try not to be creepy, right? Just start a conversation, be straightforward. Hey, I'm trying to figure out why people ride the train. Come with an empty cup mentally, but also have some hypothesis to rub up against. I always just say, don't be attached to the outcome. So, but know what you're feeling for. So get your team started quickly, get them smart quickly, bring those opportunities to life and help sell them on it. And not just them, but the client. So I don't even remember, I'm trying to think of an example. I had a client was like, we wanted to highlight the color yellow for the yellow pages. It's coming to mind ages and ages ago. And the client was like, nobody's doing that. And I said, UPS, it's like, what can brown do for you? They're owning a color. And they were like, oh, okay, you're right. So finding examples of how other successful brands and companies have done it that are not ones that you've worked on can give them a lot of confidence. So be a student of the best work that's out there. Not that UPS is the best work, but you know what I mean. I would make sure that you know how to answer, what do they need to believe about us? So what's the proof that they require? What are the secret handshakes? Ultimately, what's in it for them? Most clients all want to talk about me. You got to flip it around. What's in it for them? And if you go there, you're not going to go far wrong. And from a client point of view, what's our noble goal? What do we really want to have happen as a result? If you know when it was created, what was the problem that it solved? So diving into some of that can be helpful. Getting your respondents to do homework gets them, meaning pre-work, gets them to think about it ahead of time. They're a little primed, they're a little prepped, they aren't kind of caught off guard or put on the spot. And it gives you some beautiful show and tell for your artifacts. I have a book of techniques, agency toolkit, but I find they can really be sneaky. They get people to tell you things that they didn't mean to tell you, not on purpose. They just didn't think it was that top of mind. One is an epitaph. So pretend that the brand has died and I want to know how it should be remembered or how it would be remembered. They'll always ask that and go, well, if they're different, I'd like to talk about that. And who would most mourn its passing and what killed it? So you can have a whole conversation around a brand's legacy or reputation. Writing a love letter to your brand, getting customers to do this, getting employees to do this, getting my team to do this can be really powerful. There's some lovely stuff in there. Getting people to do a psycho drawing. So this was draw 4 banks as people. And it was brilliant. People were like, this Wells Fargo guy is a guy in a cowboy suit. He's not a cowboy, so I don't know why he's in a cowboy suit, but he is, and I don't trust him. Bank of America, old stodgy guy with the top hat. I don't like this guy. I don't want to hang out with this guy, but he's consistent and he makes a good banker. My client was all worried about this other bank. They were like, I don't know who you're talking about. And then Washington Mutual, who since went under years ago, but they were like, oh, that's like Southwest Airlines guys. They're super casual. They're very Northwesty, but without wrapping themselves in the Northwest flag. And one of the questions that we had to answer was, can a bank be funny? And they said, those banks can't be funny, but that bank can be funny because it is part of already who they are. Genius. I've done psycho drawings with tons of clients. This was a theater, a very casual theater in Portland. So this was our dude, and they were very feather boas at the other theaters, but it drove kind of what our tone of voice was and how we spoke to people. So great exercises to draw your brand as a person and your main competitor. as a person. Get your team to do it, get your client to do it, or get ideally your customers to do it. Adjective checklist, I change these sometimes, but I've used these for years, and it's find 3 words on this page that describe your brand currently, and 3 words that describe your brand in an ideal world, 2 rungs above where you are. And tell me how someone would know that they were those things without telling them. Clients love this. It's easy. If they're not aligned, it is so obvious they're not aligned, and it's a great place to start. Things about brands too, just pay attention to, things have to be demonstrated as opposed to stated. So it's like trust us. You can't say trust us, but you know the secret handshakes of what is trustworthy. And I don't put those words on the adjective checklist because A, if you're not doing them, you won't be in business very long. But B, it's not a personality trait. It is a quality, but we want personality. Brand sort, finding other brands that embody those same traits. So poster child, or if your brand was on a playground, who would it be hanging out with and why? Can be amazingly fun. Playing with ideas, building adcepts. This was from Red Spider's, a Barada benefit awareness role, attributes, territory, and attitude. I'm not going to read all these, but I'll give you, there's 6 ways to dimensionalize a brand. One of them is through attitude, personality. One's kind of a wide swath of landscape. One are very specific attributes. One could be its role in the universe. Some could be what is awareness of our brand surround. So that's where the UPS is, the brown and yellow popped up. Coke bottle, you can tell from a million miles away in any language. And then what are the benefits? So this could be a great workshop. You get people to put them on sticky notes and go, what's true about our brand? Everybody does 3, and you stick them in these quadrants, and hey, we either have a lot to talk about here. Let's brainstorm some of these other things and see if we can find something that's been unearthed, or you do the whole category and say, how's everybody talking about themselves? Oh my God, everybody's talking about benefit, or everybody's in territory. What are some of the white spaces or places we could play? So just some examples. Benefit. When I worked on a zoo, people talked about it being allowed them to reconnect to their creaturehood. They could see the whites of their eyes. I said, why is it important to see the whites of their eyes? And they were like, it reminds me of my creaturehood. I feel gross that they're in cages, and then I think I'm in a cube or stuck to my desk, and that's not cool either. So it's just emotional growth. Amtrak, I'm like, why do people ride the train for 3 days that costs more than flying and takes longer than driving? And they said, because it's a vacation. The second I get on, it's found time. It is a land cruise. Nike swoosh. It's a great example of awareness of an icon or a bottle shape. It does not have to have the name attached to it. Again, yellow for the yellow pages. Role, we play in people's lives. Miller High Life, that symbol of a real man, as being a symbol, has a role. Weston is a sanctuary. They sell hotel beds, or what they make is hotel beds, but they're really selling sanctuary. Attributes, Southwest Airlines is cheap. Okay, then ladder that up. So A, we're going to sell cheap, but then if it's cheap, I'm allowed to be spontaneous. I don't have to book it 2 weeks in advance. Oh, and if I do that, that means I have freedom to go whenever I want. You are now free to move about the country. So they do have an emotional benefit they ladder to, but what they're selling are cheap seats. Motel 6, similar. I will say one of the first accounts I worked on was Motel 6, and we were having a focus group, and we recruited people from Motel 6 guest lists back when we could do that, and nobody would admit to having stayed there. Which, 10 minutes in, Stan was like, I know what we need to do. We have to give people permission. Done. Territory. Cowboy Americana. I think Yellowstone now, but Marlboro Man. Disney's Family Magic. That is something they actually use. It's not often that the magnetic virtues are used out in the real world, but Family Magic is a thing. It's a landscape. Attitude. Virgin kind of owns irreverence or uses irreverence. And Mini Cooper, very quirky. It is a BMW. Never talks about it. They kind of lean into their attitude. Just another really fun methodology, technique was we wanted to talk to people who drink this root beer, obscure root beer, Thomas Kemper, Northwest. So we had a PR team do root beer floats. Root beer was their #1 flavor out in Pioneer Square. And as people were waiting in line for a free root beer float, we had them fill out this Mad Lib and recruited people who were Thomas Kemper fans to come talk to us later in the week. So it was kind of survey, it's kind of intercept, it's kind of recruiting. But anyway, it was fantastic. So we did a burrata on them. The benefit is that it was always appropriate, whether you were in a snotty cocktail party and didn't want to drink, or playing board games with your grandkids. Awareness, had a lot of visual cues of, oh, I know it's Thomas Kemper from across the room. Our role in the universe was a sophisticated alternative to beer and soda. You could have it with food, you can do it out and about, you could have it as a treat. It was a badge of individual, creative, interesting people who are also nice, and a visceral feeling of bottled summer. Attributes, premium, it's very expensive. It was exclusive. They served it in restaurants. Honey was a primary ingredient, and was known very intently in the Northwest. Didn't know if they were going to add a Northwest seal or not. Territory, generational bonds. It was passed down traditions of fun and games, and one of America's favorite beverages. And their attitude, very charismatic, intelligent leader. So we kind of used Paul Newman as a poster child. Perceptual map is another way just to kind of play with your insights. And so we were like, okay, if we're selling a hotel, how does the world break up the hotel world? So there's high quality, high price, high quality, low price, low quality, expensive. So there are way too many of those, and low quality, inexpensive. So you can decide kind of where you fit and where everybody else fits, but it really is your customers that dictate where on this. You could do this in a group. I do it in a workshop, go, where does everybody live? And where do we live? And where do we want to be? But finding out what those axes are is kind of the key bit. You could do a little more complex one. So instead of just price and quality, some are sensorial and some are sanctuary, some are luxurious and some are very basic. So again, play with your axes to go, what is our sandbox exactly, and where do we fit within it? Another one for you. Just draw it and play. These are places to play that if you were going to build adcepts, I would go through mentally exercise of all of these different things to go, can I build an adcept around most of these? And again, that's just a Google image with a headline that's like, what does our product do and how is it different from others? You could do one around what are our noble goals that drive us as a company? What is our promise? What business are we really in? What's in it for them? What does it say about them? So I would just play with all of these mentally or in a workshop. I wouldn't take this particular one into a group, but I would have these questions in mind. And then playing with magnetic virtues. You know, your brand makes certain things. Volvo makes cars, but it's selling something different. It's selling safety for life, the tagline. Harley Davidson makes motorcycles. They sell rebellion. Southwest Airlines makes cheap seats, ultimately selling freedom. See if you can get down to that one word emotional benefit. And then everything trickles out from there. Mother briefs are if you have a brand like Virgin that has multiple brands or categories underneath it. So you just kind of ladder up and go, what is the through line that everybody has in common? Which is a really helpful exercise if you have a portfolio of brands. Don't be afraid. This is a technique that an art director built around something we were talking about archetypes, and they use archetypes a lot, but then we also did this brand sort exercise. So he just put everything together to say, okay, give me some brand examples that are examples of those archetypes. And I think it's just brilliant. And I thank you, Cairo, every day. But where on this, wheel does your brand want to play? If where they're currently playing is somewhere else, let's talk about that, because rule of thumb is you play the hand that you're dealt. But figuring out how others in the category are exemplifying that archetype can be helpful to find a place to play. Little bit on briefs. I love them. They have to be creative and they have to be brief. So give yourself goosebumps and make it no longer than one page. You need to capture areas of heat. You need to inspire them with stories. You need to explain how it works and be prescriptive, not descriptive, meaning this is where I think we should play. You got to answer, why are we doing it? Are we getting them to reframe how they feel about us? Are we getting them to reconsider us? Are we revolutionizing the category? Most people will answer this in, we have to increase awareness and trial. No shit. What else? What's the problem? What's the opportunity? Really kind of get into some of these ideas. Who are we talking to? What's a mindset? I always start with people who love the taste of mango. This was actually for GameWorks, for those for whom instant gratification isn't fast enough. Oh my God, in this many words, you've just told me so much about these people. And it's not about demographics. And I'll just dump it. Demographics don't mean anything anymore. It's all psychographics. So what's the through line of what they believe and what they want? What do we need to tell them? An example is life's too short to drink cheap wine. It was Napa Valley Vineyards. It says something about the company. It says something about the customer. And it's that one thing I think that would bridge what they currently think with what we want them to think, which is what we need to do. Yes. And again, these are just skipping stones across the creative briefs. So brand's character could be brilliant, vibrant, and warm, and the poster child could be Dr. Seuss meets Einstein. So it can be a smash up, but something that just paints a picture of how we want to sound, what we want to say, how we want to put ourselves across. Personas, I think, these are personalities, they're poster children. I've found lately that I like to have them rub up against each other a little bit. So a brand's voice gets woefully overlooked these days, especially if it's tech. And I think it's because they gave up on it. Nobody wants to differentiate themselves with the how. They want to differentiate themselves with the what. And I don't know that, geeks care about bits and bytes. The rest of us just want an apple. So one, I think this was an accounting firm. We wanted them to come across as intelligent, witty, and provocative, but not fatherly. So he said, think Jon Stewart, not Jay Leno. Mini Cooper, dynamic, different, and pedigreed, but not formal. So Mini Cooper versus BMW. They already have BMW out in the world. How's Mini Cooper different? And Veuve Clicquot versus Dom Perignon. Arty, sophisticated, classy, but not stuffy. And the last one actually saved a reposition of an accounting firm. An accounting firm does the same thing every other accounting firm does by law. So the only way to differentiate was in personality. And We had, this Jon Stewart versus Jay Leno. They loved having fun. They were good, lighthearted people, but the pinstripe suit was like, oh, we're dealing with people's money and dreams and futures, and we can't be flippant and we can't be seen as less than. So I combed the universe for brands like Veuve Clicquot that were as premium as Dom Perignon, still in the champagne land, but set itself apart by being a little jazzier. Just use that word. And that was enough for the client to say, okay, I got it. I can live with Veuve. I can explain that at a dinner party. And again, strong visuals are even more powerful. So the presentation absolutely had this versus that. Examples for the theaters of, how they were putting themselves out there. So Third Rail was this kind of edgy, young, brushed aluminum feel, where ART, our client, was Rejuvenation. I don't know if you know Pacific Northwest brands, but very replicas for Victorian houses, like old school stuff, very indicative of craft and character, but it was old meets new. And then the other was Portland Center Stage, which was that higher end Chown hardware. So a doorknob was like $300, but it gave a frame of reference outside their categories, which can be really helpful for a client. Other things to play with: mindset manifestos. Write a prose thing about what's going through their minds. Archetypes, we talked about. Brand, our poster child, we've talked about. Brand manifesto, God, it's just another one of my, it's writing that manifesto for about what it's really about. It can be about the magnetic virtue. Talk to me about rebellion. I find I write the brief, but it's not enough. So I always try to write a manifesto around it. Here's one for that accounting firm I was telling you about. We believe in the power of happiness. We believe that if you attract those who have a passion and keep that fire alive with laughter and friendship, you create a place where magic can happen. Our culture is rooted in work hard, play hard mentality and a passion for making our clients satisfied and successful. It's not just what we do, it's how we do it. We believe that accounting can be sexy, their words, and that you can take work seriously without taking yourselves too seriously. We believe we create partnerships that can mentor businesses through complex challenges. We believe the difference between good and great accounting can make or break the opportunity to create a legacy, not just a business. We are Perkins, and we believe in igniting possibilities. So they use this to recruit. They use this to incite mergers or to help with fit. And ultimately, it's something that clients are going to rub up against and go, hey, yeah, maybe that's kind of what makes you guys interesting, unique. Some have made brand books out of manifestos. Some have put them as plaques outside their front door as a welcome, to customers. I think it's, regardless of how they use it, I think writing it is important. So they focused on culture. Again, they had a lot of M&As, they had solid recruiting. They doubled in size while remaining one of the best places to work in Portland. So one of the most admired accounting firms. I'll put the creative brief in here. We'll just kind of show you how I wrote it. I think you can pause this if you want to read it for yourself or print it out. But it's, all the pieces kind of have to fit together. So how do we gain traction? Again, use other brand examples to make your case. So when we were trying to convince Perkins, we used the Mini versus BMW, American Express versus Visa, New Seasons versus like Safeway, but it was really the Veuve versus Dom that got them. They were like, oh, but that's premium. These other ones aren't premium. And we didn't know that was his issue in hindsight. Again, Dove Lewis is another one that we wrote for the animal hospital. This is one that they put on a plaque in front of the new hospital. It is about the human animal bond. It's where those who know go. That came from a discussion with people who said, I talk to people, my new neighbors, when I move here and say, where do you go? Where's, the people who love their pets, where do you guys take your animals if there's an emergency or for veterinary care? So the old Dove Lewis was a tiny little house with an operating room and a bedroom. And they've since built a new hospital, new branding. And it was really the insight that pets were people's children. They wanted the veterinary hospital to feel like a preschool and not a scary place. And again, this was more than 20 years ago. So I know pets as children has always been a thing, but I don't know that anybody's really grabbed that fully as part of their brand. So begin with the end in mind. What does success look like? How will we know when we get there? What's being measured or what can be measured? I always kind of start with the end and then go, okay, let's make sure that we're moving the needle. Because if you follow the money, you will never go far wrong. And if you get some resistance, don't call it research, call it creative development work. Don't ask for permission. If they say, I had one of them go, I'm not going to prove this research until you tell me exactly what we're going to find out, because I don't want it to contradict what I've already told the client. Okay, I'm just going to ride the train then. I'm going to see what I find out. Showcase your ad sets to raise curiosity. I showed them the client, said, all of these could be true. And they went, you're right. All of those could be true. Let's go find out. Find ambassadors internally who can help sell you in and make your case, and you meaning planner and also you meaning agency. And just instilling it in new clients is, this is what we need to do our best work. I always say if that they won't pay for research and they won't pay for a brief, they should triple the budget, because that's what it's going to take to get the same work done. So then I want you to create a deliverable that has value and results and parade it around like where the wild things are. Don't go quietly into the night, celebrate loudly. And then your other clients will go, I want what they have. I want what they're doing. Okay, driving. This is, you're not just passively finding insights. It's moving the ball forward actively. Having good meetings. Know the end game in the beginning. What do we need to do and who's doing what next by when? Make the most important decisions first. Book a 20 or 50-minute meeting. And if somebody's going off topic, off your agenda, park it in a parking lot. Say, we will talk about that. We're just not going to talk about it right now. Define what kind of gathering it is. Are we brainstorming? Are we aligning? Are we hashing something out? Are we just huddling for status? If there's no agenda, no attenda. You don't have to go. So even in the calendar invite, have 3 items that you want to cover off. Turn the bells off. Nobody can come in. Nobody has their phones. Their cameras have to be on, but their phones are off. Text bells are off. Email bells are off. And if you're gathering in person, low tech is huge. I even have a whiteboard. I'll turn this around and just use a whiteboard. And always end up with who's doing what next by when. Again, different kinds of meetings require different amounts of time. Decision-making and aligning is going to take longer. And these are some of the rules. I have a whole other thing on killer process. So if you want to dive more into this, please do. Good briefings. Talk to them before you write it. Let them read it before the briefing to digest it. I always like to start with a story. I like to make it human. Bring examples of what could be. Other brands have done this, or, hey, I thought, one of my bad idea would be that it could look like this. But know the one piece of information that you want to leave them with. Good communications. It's a hallmark of having people turn to you as the voice of reason. So change the subject line in emails when you reply so that you can search for it. You can even answer it in the subject line. Turn your bells off. Focus time is important. Once you lose your focus time, it takes you 20 minutes to get back. Batch your activities by where you are, what kind of mental state you're in. If you're emailing and somebody, batch all your questions for them. If it's more than 5 lines, talk to them. Try to ask before you tell. bring all the decisions back to the brand and the business. I have a whole other thing on process that are about briefs and workbacks and milestone meetings, and all of those things just create less madness. I produce my own work and the people in it, and I think they find it lighter. Shoulder taps, don't happen that much anymore because we're remote. But sending someone a note if, hey, can I get on your calendar sometime this week? Or if it's a DM of, hey, can you talk in the next little while? Or we just have agreements to say, if I can't talk, I won't answer. But if you want to reach me, just call me. There are a lot of resources out there. YouTube, TED. I've got a whole reading list on my website. Feel free, knock yourselves out. I find it sparks so many ideas that I use at work, some of these things. So enjoy. Email me if you have questions. Contact me if, I don't even think those work anymore. I'm Lynette@wildalchemy.com. So contact me if you have questions. I'd love to talk you through this. And Godspeed. I hope it all goes swimmingly and you use your powers for good. Thanks.